Just follow this 49-point on-page SEO checklist and you'll get results like this, and this. Let's dive right in. Okay, so if you look on the right-hand side, this is going to be the on-page SEO checklist I'm going to be walking you through, and you're going to have access to this checklist below the video. So there'll be a link either in the description or in the pinned comment. So let's just dive right into it. So number one, is the URL allowed in the robots.txt file for Googlebot and Bingbot? Okay, so all we have to do is just go to the page itself and just open up the detailed Chrome extension and then click on the robots.txt here. And you can see, as long as there's nothing being blocked here by the disallow, then you're going to be good to go. Okay. But if you saw anything in here that like any bots are being blocked, generally we don't want that to happen. Okay. And especially we don't want any of the traditional search engines to be blocked. And we also don't want the AI crawlers to be blocked. So if you see anything like GPT bot or Google extended or Perplexity bot, you don't want any of that in there. Okay. So this is the appropriate setup here. This is going to be a pass for them. Okay. So we can pass both of these. And then the next thing here is you want to see, is the page actually indexable? Like, are there any directives being used that would potentially be blocking this page? Okay, so we're going to go back over here once again, detailed Chrome extension, go over to the robots tag section. And if we see index follow, that's perfectly fine. Also, if this is completely blank, that's also okay. Okay, so we can go over here. This is pass, no worries there. And then does the page return a 200 status? 200 just means that it's actually accessible. It's not a 404 or it's being redirected, or there's some sort of server error. That's what we want to see. Okay, so we're going to go back over here. And there's a little tool you can use, and you'll see it here. Just run the URL through this little tool, and it's obviously in the checklist. And we just want to see that it's actually showing up as a 200 across all these different areas that they ran this test. Okay, so very simple. All right, so this page is pretty much good to go. Now, the next one is, can the page be fetched directly? And we're looking at ChatGPT in this context. You could also do this across any of the LLMs as well, because they do have the ability to do direct retrieval, meaning when you put a domain or URL into ChatGPT, it can actually go and retrieve that directly. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab this URL here, and we're going to go into ChatGPT. And if you do the thinking model, typically the one I'm going to use when I'm going to do any type of retrieval, and you can just do something like, tell me about this website. Or actually, no, we'll do more specifically. Tell me about this page. You can actually look through the logic of going through this. So it looks like browsing page or key details. It actually did go through that page and then it scrolled. So based on what we're seeing here, you can actually go and verify this too, right? If you want to make sure that it's being, not making things up and it's not hallucinating, you can actually go and verify these facts in here. So what you can do is just grab a random piece of information like this and just see if hallucination has been prevented. And you can see if we search this, this is actually legit, which means the only way they would have gotten this information is through retrieval. Okay. So, and just keep in mind, it can still hallucinate. So just be careful. Always do some fact checking. But what we're trying to do here is just make sure, like, the purpose of this little activity is just to see that ChatGPT can actually retrieve this page. Okay, that's what we want to see. It can actually go and it's not being blocked. That's really what we want to see. All right, so we can go ahead and give that one a pass. And then next we're going to see, is this page actually indexed in the 3 search engines that matter the most? Google, Bing, and Brave. Now, here's why. Obviously, we want to be indexed in Google because it's the #1 search engine, and it's also going to directly influence Google's AI mode, and it's going to be influencing Google Gemini as well. Okay, so those 2 products, if we're not indexed in Google, we have basically no chance of showing up in those products. Okay, Bing, we know that ChatGPT uses Bing, and so does Perplexity. So we want to make sure that we're showing up there as well I'm speaking in reference to actually when it uses retrieval. And then the third one is Brave, and Brave, there's some evidence that Claude uses Brave as its source of retrieval. So we just want to make sure that we're indexable across all these major search engines. That's really important. Very easy. Just go and do a site colon search. In fact, you don't even have to do site colon. You could just search the raw URL and you just want to see that it's popping up. Okay. So in Google, we're good. When we do it in Bing, we'll go over here. They're actually indexed over here as well. And then we look at Brave, they're indexed here as well. Okay, so they're doing well. They've got the proper foundation set up. Now let's dive into some of the other stuff. Is the page HTML? Okay, so this is really important. So we know that the LLMs prefer HTML. Okay. And if your page is built in JavaScript, you're not gonna be a good source of retrieval, for the LLM. So just just use HTML. Okay. I'm not going to get super deep in this. Just use HTML, make your life easier. Okay. And it's quite simple. If we go here and look at this, view page source, we can go ahead and just see, is this actually HTML? The answer is yes. But more importantly, we want to see that the text is actually crawlable and retrievable in this content. So if you could go past all this like crazy code up here, we see actual meat in here, actual text that's in the HTML. We can see that H1 popping up in here. We can see that H2, and we can see these paragraph tags. Okay, that's what you want to see. You want to see that that text is actually showing up right here in the code. Okay, that's exactly what you want to see. So that's a pass. Then is the core content server rendered and visible in the page source? Once again, this tells you that it is being rendered. Okay, so that kind of, you pass both those checks right away. Is a canonical URL set? Just go right back in here. We're going to go to the detail Chrome extension and just see that it is a self-referencing canonical tag. That's what you want to see. All right, self-referencing. That's exactly what you want. All right. Okay. So we're good on all of these. They've passed everything so far. Okay. So does the page match the dominant intent shown in the live SERP for the target keyword? Okay. So basically what we want to do is we want to study the SERPs, and we want to see, are we actually matching what's in the SERPs? We don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of things that you can get fancy about and get creative about. But one of the things you don't want to do is when it comes to intent, you want to copy the first page. Okay. Don't ever try to go against that unless you're very skilled. If you're very skilled at this, you can, but it's risky. Okay. What we want to do is look at this and say, okay, what is the general type of page that is ranking? So when we look at the types of pages that are ranking here, we see we've got lots of lawyers who all have, really kind of commercial pages. Okay. These are all just commercial pages. And, obviously there's some room for improvement because technically they function more like informational pages, even though they're commercial. But the main point is mostly commercial pages. Cool thing about inside of Rankability here, if you click on view SERP, this will give you an unbiased view of what the SERPs look like right now. Okay. And so you can actually go down here and see I like to do this because I can actually determine okay, what is a CTR going to look like? And we see we've got a big ad block here. So that's already going to hurt CTR. Then we go down here, we've got a local pack, meaning we have to focus on the local pack number one above the traditional search results. And then we've got the traditional search results here. Okay. But we can see it's 99.9% commercial pages. So that tells us everything we need to know. That means we need to go and build a commercial page as well. Now, based on what we're seeing here, they've done that. Obviously room for improvement, but in general, they have matched the intent to a certain extent. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and pass them on that. Now, does the page include elements needed to qualify for SERP features? Now, in this case, if you look here on the competitors tab on Rankability, you can see any SERP features that exist. So in this case, there really aren't any SERP features. The only SERP feature that we see, major SERP feature, is the Google Business Profiles, the local pack here. So that's kind of a separate discussion altogether, right? But there's no people also ask or there's not even actually an AI overview in this case, which is pretty rare. So just one feature here. And obviously, as long as they have a Google Business Profile and they have an address in Chicago and they're actively acquiring reviews, that's 80 to 90% of the equation. Okay. Does the page display a visible publish date and clearly labeled last update? And is the content current, reflected any changes? So this is really important here, which is the LLMs tend to prefer fresh pages that have been updated very recently. So it's important to constantly be refreshing your pages and making them up to date as much as possible. Now, because this is a commercial page, it's not likely to see a publish date or last updated. So what you can do is actually go into the code and try to find the various years that pop up in here. So what I'll do is I'll just do 20. And then I'll try to find anything that's going to give us signals of how old this page really is. Now, when we see this right away, we found 2016. Okay. That's not a good sign. All right. Because what that's telling us already is that this page is very old. This page has not been updated very often. We've got 2023 in here. We keep going down and more 2020 in here. So we have elements on this page that go as far back as 2016. Okay. That's really old. All right. So that's going to be a big fail here. Now for commercial pages, this is typically what you're going to have to do because you're not going to be able to see, usually like a last update or publish date. But even then, even on an informational page, you still want to go through that same practice because you want to see like, are there outdated elements on this page? And we don't want to have that. We need to make sure that it's extremely up to date if we want to have good performance. Okay, now we're just talking about readability, which is like having a TLDR or scannability, which is really important for LLMs because they go and extract through retrieval. They're pulling elements and chunks from the page. So you want to make sure it's really, really clear what you guys do at like right above the fold. And just the general structure of this page, there's a lot of room for improvement. Okay. So I'm just going to go through a couple of things here just because I can't help myself. So a couple of things here. Number one, this section up here is very problematic because number one, when you use this blue here, this is the universal sign of a link and the universal color of a link on the internet. Okay. So when you use this color here for text, it looks like a link. Okay. And this here actually is a link. So we have text that looks like a link that isn't a link. And then we have an actual link that's using the right color. So there's just some color issues here. And then this one here is using actually a different color for this link. So you want links to look like links, but you want to make sure that the general theme and color scheme isn't going to compete with those links. Okay. So right now, this is not the appropriate setup. In fact, I'd be moving away from blue headings like this, and I would move to like, maybe a darker blue or even just black. Okay. That's just much easier and let links be links, as far as that blue color. Another thing is too, the phone number is one of the most important things on this page, yet it's very muted. Okay. It's a very muted color. So we want to make that phone number be the star of the show because it's critical that we get people to actually call us to actually drive conversions. Okay. So that's really important. And then right here, the general structure here, like UX 101, is that the primary headline is above the fold. Okay, so there should be, at any page that you're on a website, the headline should be one of the first things that you see because it helps the user understand where they are in that moment. Okay, but right now, if we were to just kind of like move this up, if someone landed on this page, they'd have no idea where they are. They don't know what this page is. They don't know, there's a happy truck driver here, but we don't really know what this page is about, right? If you're just on this alone with no context. So you have to shift this around. And what I would do is I would use just like a left-right format. So you'd have headline on the left, sub-headline, call to action, then maybe a form over here too. And then like maybe some testimonials. Like you could restructure this page quite easily. Okay. And right now, this page is not really built for maximum conversions. So this is much bigger than just an SEO content and an on-page SEO issue. There's like full-on structural issues going on here with this page. If you want some like a good inspo, I would look at these guys here. Okay. I've talked about them before. This is not my client or anything. I just think that one of my favorite websites I've seen on the local level. It's beautiful. It does so many things well. And just model this, okay? Because you got a beautiful phone number above the fold, very prominent. You've got another CTA here for people that are not ready to call. And then you see the CTAs throughout, right? The calls to action. We've got a nice, beautiful form. Like I said, left-right format. So we got a nice left here with the context, and then we've got the call to action. So, and then obviously we've got some social proof. It's just overall, it doesn't get much better than this. This is about as good as it gets. Okay. So model this. This is what a beautiful conversion focused design will look like. And you can still get maximum SEO benefits in fact, you'll get more SEO benefits by doing this because you're going to get the goal completions that are supposed to happen on your page, which is likely also a Google ranking factor. Okay. So I would go ahead and give this one a fail on that. If applicable, does a page include a short verdict box? The answer is no. It's just like very text heavy. Most people are never going to read this. And this is really just an attempt to manipulate Google, but not necessarily drive conversions, which that should be the number one objective. The number one objective should not be how do we manipulate Google to rank and how do I manipulate the AI platforms. The goal should be how do we drive maximum goal completions on this page, considering this is a transactional page. That's the number one objective. Then the SEO is second to that. Okay. So we're going to give that a fail. Does the page provide information gain compared to the top results? Probably not. Okay, we don't have to do much analysis there. Okay, is the word count sufficient to satisfy search intent without unnecessary padding? I'm going to go ahead and say no, but just because we'll go ahead and get some quantifiable proof here. We can see we actually placed all the content here. So if you do a content optimizer here, you can actually extract. If you don't, you can actually go over here to URL extraction, and then we'll go ahead and retrieve that information, bring it back into this editor. But right here in the word count is not a ranking factor per se, but we want to be within range as to where the competitors are, but we don't want to be super aggressive there. And so in the context is we're using median word count. So we're eliminating the outliers. So like if some competitor has, 10,000 words and some competitors got 50, we're just eliminating them all together and bringing to that true middle. So this optimal range is like, you want to be in here. In fact, I would argue you'd want to be more on the low end, because if you're on the low end, you're going to practice brevity. You're going to focus on conversions. And you're not going to just fluff up your content, which is not beneficial, really. So we're looking at 4,300 words. If I was working on this page, I'd delete nearly 3,000 of the words on this page. Like I would literally just chop away at it. And I'll show you how we can restructure this page. But in general, this target word count is critical because, word count's a tricky thing because just having words is not a ranking factor, but you need words to have context, right? Like the search engine crawlers and LLMs, they need meat. They need actual words to understand what the page is about. So in that way, you could argue that it is a factor, but it's not like a specific word count is a fact. It's not like the LLM say, oh, this page has 1,500 words, therefore it's going to rank better. That's not what it is. It's more that, oh, this page has something that I can understand, and then I know what I can do with this. Right. And that's really what it is. It's the substance. It's not the quantity. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and that one's going to be a fail. And then, basic grammar and spelling, actually kind of cool. Most people don't know like some of the functions in here, but you can actually go in here and click on AI. And what this will do is if you just click on spelling and grammar, this will just do a full spelling and grammar analysis with our AI. So there's like some little features in here that I don't really talk about, but this is a quick way you can do this. It means you don't even need Grammarly, to be honest. I canceled Grammarly like a year and a half ago. So, all right. So are the headings hierarchy logical with short paragraphs, lists, tables? Okay. So going back to here, we can see there's a bunch of grammatical errors and opportunities to improve this overall. So if you just do accept and replace, it will actually just clean all of this up automatically for you. Okay, so if you want to do a quick analysis of the headings, just go over to the brief here and then click on outline, and you can see the heading structure all set up here. So this is actual headings pulled from that page, and we can see this is not exactly what we want. We want to make sure that we've got like a solid H1, which is good. This is perfect. Got a good H1. Then we would have an H2, but then within that H2, we would start to layer in H3s. So this is just a little H2 heavy. We don't want it to be like this. So like if you look at this competitor here, they've got a nice setup. They've got H1, H2, then they've got the H3s within that H2 and so on and so forth. This is a good setup. This is a little too H2 heavy. Okay, moving on to loading speed, just run the page through Google PageSpeed Insights and you can see, check on mobile and check on desktop. So they're about a 57 on mobile and they're 98 on desktop. Knowing that most of their traffic is likely mobile, then this is a problem. Okay. For B2B, desktop tends to be much more prevalent, but for, B2C type of situation like this, you're going to see a lot more mobile traffic. So this is definitely something we're going to want to fix. Okay. Is it mobile friendly? All right. There's a very simple thing you can do here. If you want to check to see mobile friendliness, just go ahead and like open up the URL like this and just condense this down. And this will give you a pretty rough idea of what it's going to look like on mobile. Okay. It's not perfect, but it gives you a pretty good idea. The only true way to do this is just literally pick up your phone and look on your actual device. Okay. That's the best way to really do it. All right. But this one looks good on that front. Pass. And then is the reading level appropriate for the target audience? in general, online, like any internet level content should be very simple, like very, very simple content, easy to understand, easy to read. And what we'll see here, if we go over here to the readability, this is a college level content, even up to college graduate. This is way too intense. And so this is one of the biggest issues I see with lawyers. They always have really, really technical content, but their clients are not highly technical in the legal space. So you have to convert this to something they can actually understand. Okay. This is not what we want. We want it to be much lower, high school, elementary, like as low as we can go, first grade level, try to go to that level. That's going to make a big difference as far as conversion rates on the internet. Okay, now we're talking about some basic on-page SEO 101, which is really just about keyword placement. And then of course, overall topic coverage. So what you can do is go to the brief here and you can actually click on this, and we actually have it built in here so you can see the primary keyword. We want to see that primary keyword is actually popping up in the URL. So this did not pass. So this is going to be a fail. And when I say primary keyword, I mean Chicago truck accident lawyer. So we don't see Chicago in here at all. And my test for this is what I do is like, I pretend there is no context. So just looking at this page, we see practice area truck accidents. I don't know where that is, right? I don't know if that's Chicago. I don't know if that's Florida. There's no context. So you need to have the city to give context. That's just my personal opinion. All right. This one here is about title tag. They passed that. They're good to go. We'll look at the meta description. Meta description looks good. Actually, sorry, past that one, past that. There is a keyword in the H1. Yes, we know that. Is the keyword in the first 100 words. Oh, we can go ahead and look in here. Yeah. I mean, I would say that I'll give that one a pass. That's fair. Variation in the H2. Yeah, we got to give that one a pass. Descriptive headings, overall, okay. I'm not going to be too gruff on that. And then this one, although it is the last point, is the most important point in this section, which is, does it cover all the relevant topics? Okay. So go over here, you look at relevance, but we're actually going to go to unused, and we're going to see we've got tons of unused topics that the competitors are using. Okay. So I would argue that this page needs to be completely redone. And so, we passed all of those things, but the reality is, if this was my client, this page, I would just start from scratch. Okay. And the way I would do it is pretty simple. I would just start with AI as the base, using AI to build that base content, and then use the human editorial process to make it better. Okay. So go into here, you use the AI writer inside of Rankability if you wanted to. And what I do in this section is obviously pick service page because it's a commercial page. And then what I'll do is I'll use ChatGPT to go and give me context. Okay. So right here, you can see, you can use this little prompt, but basically we can go and retrieve that information. It will go and give us context about that brand. And then this is how we can make that AI content a lot more unique relative to the people that are ranking, because a commercial page is really easy to actually make unique because it should be about your brand, and there is only you. So it's automatically unique out of the gate. So what you can do though is I'll have it turn into a markdown file, and then we'll just copy this over. We'll put this into the context window, and then I will generate that content. And then in the last section under goal completions, this is really, really important. So what I recommend doing is just making sure that all of their calls to action actually work. Okay. And I already said that, this page, I would personally, this should be redesigned in my opinion, but let's just say they were to keep this. I want to make sure that the phone number is actually clickable. So if I click on this, will it actually call? The answer is yes. Okay. So it actually does work. But then what we want to do is actually want to test this form. So you can use a service like Mailinator. Just do this real quickly. And I want to see if this form actually works, because if it doesn't work, then that's going to cause a lot of problems. All right. So we're going to run this through. We use Mailinator. And I apologize to this brand that I'm doing this, but just for the sake of, for the argument here, it seems to have worked. I would go ahead and say that this is a solid pass. However, I would argue that this is an area, we're starting to step outside of the SEO realm here. But as far as conversion rate optimization, as far as building trust leading up to a call, all of those things, what you want to do is build in a proper funnel. So what we're seeing here is okay, you contact them. What happens next? Okay, going to get in touch with you shortly. Okay, so it just kind of leaves the user up, you don't really know what's going to happen after this. Are they going to get in touch with me? I'm not sure, right? So if you're trying to win deals, you want to be the one that's controlling that sales environment. So what I would do personally is as soon as someone submits this form, I'd send them to a thank you page. On that thank you page, it would be a video of one of the lawyers. And I would say, hey, thank you so much for, submitting your free case review. Here's what's going to happen next. Here's what you can expect. And you set those expectations for them, right? And then even maybe give them some additional resources that they can use, even maybe show some social proof, some case studies, or even outcomes that you've gotten for your clients. So you're building trust like right there. So now they feel like, okay, I understand the process. I'm good to go. But this is like basically, and this happens a lot with legal based websites. Actually happens a lot with basically every local business I've seen. But we need to actually continue that process, because you don't just want to have this form submission, then nothing happens after. You want to continue to build that trust and get that prospect to know, like, and trust you. This deal has not been closed, right? You have to continually sell to close that deal. And then also when we go into the inbox, we see that there is actually no confirmation email that has even come through from that contact submission. So once again, we've got two things that have to happen. Number one is when someone submits a form, they go to a thank you page. They know what's coming next. Number two, they get an email confirmation about that contact submission. Okay. So very basic stuff. I'm not talking about like complex funnels here, which we could talk about, but I'm just saying that's like just the basic that every business should be doing in the context of anyone that has a lead generation focused business. So we can see that the AI content is already done. We'll go ahead and click through. So this is going to be very good to show the distinct difference between this draft versus the other one. On the right hand side here, they're missing a lot of kind of core topics in here. Okay, a lot of those really important topics. With this draft, we can see we've covered basically all the important topics. Okay, that's why it scored so well, because it's covering what it needs to cover, right? But also, as I mentioned earlier, when you can see like the really juiced up word count, so you can see here, only about 1,400 words. Okay. So we've chopped that word count down dramatically. And it's already in a much better place. Now, I would say that the readability is still it's a little strong. It's a little strong. So the AI went a little too college graduate in this case. So this is where the human edits come in. I would start to kind of simplify this a little bit more. This is where you need a human. Okay. But this in general, this is what you want to see. You want to have it be lean and highly relevant and personalized, and also obviously have that good readability. So this is what a good draft looks like. Now, I've said this a million times at this point. This is a draft. This is just the first draft. For us, like I said, this took, less than 5 minutes to make this draft. We'll then spend an hour, maybe up to 2 hours, with a human going through, reworking this, make sure it's going to flow well on that commercial page, and all of that stuff. Okay. So this is like all that time that you save from the writing, reinvest it into the back end of that content production process or that editorial process. And that's going to ensure that your content does much better. And you're practicing proper on-page SEO. Okay. And the last point of today, I just want to make sure that it's clear that when it comes to on-page SEO, it is only one sliver of the total equation as far as performance in Google and ChatGPT and LLMs. Okay. What really matters, and this is unfortunately, people think that like if they just focus on site, they're going to get good results. And unless you're in a really uncompetitive industry, it's not going to be the case. You still need to carve out all of these other elements. So I'll have a video that you can watch next. It's going to show you how to do ChatGPT SEO specifically. And there'll be other videos on my channel also about how to optimize for Google as well. But you'll see that like there's much more to this equation, in particular, offsite. Okay. And you can see your backlink profile and your third party. And by the way, this chart is just my personal opinion of like impact of these particular categories. But 50%, in my opinion, at least, I'm being maybe a little conservative here, is what's happening off of your website. That's where most of the impact is going to come from, is what's happening off of your website, not what you're doing on your site. That's only equates maybe 50% of the total equation. So just wanted to show you this to make sure we're being realistic, that even if you follow this checklist, and there's a lot of content stuff on there as well, we're only looking about maybe 25%, a quarter of the equation. So make sure you're covering all of these different areas if you want to maximize your AI search and SEO performance.